Okay.
You guys haven't heard 2:30 kick for asking about it. You don't know TV yet. ABC, ESPN, or ESPN?
You say no TV now?
ABC, ESPN, or ESPN TV channel.
Oh, okay. I was afraid of prime time. And it's 2:30, right?
Be an Amarillo like that.
Robert? Yeah. 2:30. 2:30. I love that.
You're on an airplane.
If we could get some 11 o'clocks, I'm the anti-Stu. Give me some more 11 o'clocks.
Okay, players had a good off week. We let them have off 3 days, and they were back in town last night, and we practiced another day off today and then back at it Tuesday. Everybody seems to be in good spirits and hopefully rested up, and need to continue to work to improve the areas that we talked about a week ago. We put some time into the running game, put some time into downfield coverage, and continue to work in special teams. And so we just need to get a little bit better each week and get ready for the game on Saturday.
Mike, did you like the balance to your bye week in terms of rest and practice time?
I think so. We'll know a lot more on how they react this week. It's a little different for us, but if we practice good this week and we play with a lot of energy, then it worked out for our team.
Mike, do you guys this week need to, I mean, considering where you're at in the schedule and what you've got in November, you need to start seeing some movement as far as the run game in that area, you know, what y'all are doing?
We hope so. We're putting time and effort into it. I don't think you're going to see a considerable difference. Hopefully you'll see some improvement, but I don't think you're going to all of a sudden see us become a great running football team. We've put time into it. We self-scouted, tried to identify areas we think we can improve, and we want to play a good game. We want to play hard, and hopefully you'll see some improvement in that area.
What caused you to schedule the bye week the way you did in terms of lightening up on the practice? Was there, you planned that prior to the season, knowing you were going to get to this point, it was going to be a long time before you got a bye week?
It was one of the thought processes that we had, but you just have to wait to see how the season goes. And I think there's so much energy burned, and we've played a number of close games, and I felt like that our players needed a break. And if they're not away from us, they don't ever really get a break. So hopefully it'll work out where we practice well this week and we have a lot of energy in the game. And then we're on from this point on, where there's not any more open dates. So we have to stay fresh all the way through.
Mike, it seemed there was always been a lot of talk about depth at receiver, and it seems to really be playing out this year. A lot of guys catching balls, double-digit numbers. What's that mean for a quarterback when he can rely on anybody anywhere?
Well, it's good that if you have guys on both sides of the field that you can count on to make catches, and that should help prevent defenses from playing strong pass defense on one side or the other. And especially in blitz and man, where you can spread it out. And I think it's helped our overall concept of our offense. It should start to help the running game more because we can make people be aware of where our receivers are on the field. It helps him with the blitz, and it helps him know that if they're pass heavy on one side of the field and the other, that he can go to this side and not just rely on a person.
It's been a long time, but when you first came into this program, you had some retooling, some major recruiting to get this thing back in shape. Can you even put yourself or look at what David Beatty's got and what he's doing at Kansas and kind of empathize a little bit with the situation he's in now?
I think any time a coach takes over, I would guess they have a plan and a philosophy for what they think would be successful at that particular school. And David has a a thorough background in high school coaching in the state of Texas, and he's been at several schools in college, and so he's gained a lot of experience. And they played much better last week in really both phases. And so there's some improvement going on there, and I'm sure that just being an outsider looking in, that he's got a lot on his plate at this time. But they certainly played better last Saturday.
His freshman quarterback is making some strides.
Sure. Yeah, he's throwing the ball around, and he's fairly accurate. There's not a lot of plays with him since he didn't play as much up until just recently, but he's throwing the ball accurate. He's got some decent size. He avoids the rush a little bit, and it looks like he's kind of giving him a spark, and he made some plays last week.
What makes Len Spencer so good at getting his guys locked in each week? It seems like he maximizes blocking out any kind of distraction, that kind of thing, but his guys seem to follow that.
I think that some people have a unique ability to teach and coach and train young people and to get them focused at what really matters. And he's very level-headed, very calm, thinks things through. And it's one of the strong points he has as a coach is to teach. And also instill in the players the importance of yesterday's practice and Tuesday's practice. And for us, we're not talented enough to just think we're going to show up and play play better on Saturday. We have to get better each day, and we have to stay focused. And he just has a unique ability to get players to realize what's important at the end of the day.
Just curious, because it is homecoming week. Do you have a favorite maybe homecoming memory from your playing days or while you've been coaching here? Or anything
Well,
that
I
you
think
like?
homecoming here is special. It's the largest homecoming in the country, give or take. There'll be 35,000 people here Friday night, and it's a great day. We have a great time for kickoff at 2:30. The tailgating on this campus has changed considerably over the last 5 or 6 years, but especially with homecoming, you can tell it's going to be a big day and everybody's going to be here. I get 250 different people wanting tickets, and they all want 4. It's equivalent of about 1,000 tickets. And so that's a good thing. The bad thing is I have to tell them, no, I don't have them. But the walk the night before, the 30,000 people that'll be here the day before the game really makes it a special event for our school.
How much football did you get to watch Saturday?
I watched a lot of 13-year-old and 11-year-old. Didn't watch a lot of college. Didn't see very much at all. Too many other things going on, and just didn't get a chance to watch many games on television.
When you do you watch it like John and I would watch it, or do you actually watch it in a scouting report kind of way when you watch it on television?
Scouting report.
You can't watch it as a fan would.
I'm going to guess no.
ACC game
Uh,
that you would never play either of the participants. You can't do that.
I wish I had one of my boys here and they could give you the 15-second rundown. John's got that big Chief notebook there in his pen, and he's using that instead of a computer like these younger guys are. And I have one of those that sits next to the chair that I sit in to watch games, and it looks just about like what he has there. And it's usually 2 pages, and I bring it in on Sunday to go over with the coaches, and it's probably the worst hour and a half of their week that I take notes on different things that are good, bad, and should be changed. So that's how I watch the game, and I don't know any other way to watch it.
Did you write anything down after the Michigan punt?
I had that one back here. I didn't even have to write it down. Unfortunately, those things happen, and as a coach, you would want to tell your punter that went out in that situation, if something does happen, just fall on the ball. You don't think about that at that time, but if you just fall on the ball, then it's either a 57-yard field goal or a Hail Mary pass. And it's an unfortunate situation for the young man and obviously for them, but when those type of plays happen, you make a mental note and try to make sure that it doesn't happen to your team, just like a couple years ago when Auburn ran back the field goal against Alabama. Since then, we coached that 2 to 3 times a year on how to handle that situation. Prior to that, never really thought about it.
2 memories came up on that, Mike. I think it was 08 at Columbia. I think you had to punt at the end of the game, and it was painful to even think about having to do it. But I think you ended up having to do it. And then in 11 at A&M, when you just had Blackman run out of the back of the end zone and took a safety. So that's happened to you before, different scenarios.
Yeah, my good friend, I grew up with, Mitch Simons, who is very critical of my coaching, called me and reminded me of the Missouri situation, because he not only didn't want to punt, he wasn't glad we did it, and then we punted to the returner they had that was a great player. I can't remember his name. Macklin. We punted to Macklin, which really even fueled the fire that we had completely lost our minds to even punt to him. And it scared me when he was telling me the story, so much that I wish I wouldn't have done it. But it was too late then. And so there's just so many scenarios you don't think of that can happen in a game. And if it does happen, you try to coach it and make sure that your team's protected from that type of play in those situations.
I know you can't comment on players or even the games you went to see, but it was out on social media that you were out on the road recruiting at high school games. Can you be effective, or is it a deal where people recognize you, or do you have to find somewhere to stand where nobody's can bother you in order to and do you enjoy going out and doing that?
Well, first, I enjoy being out. There's nothing quite like being at a Friday night or a Thursday night high school football game with the cool crisp there and the band and the student section, and it's enjoyable to be out, and I like that part of my job. I'm down on the field, so I can stay away from the players and the coaches once the game starts. But I get a chance to interact with the students from the schools. You know, I can go be around them and take pictures and stand in their student body and enjoy myself and market Oklahoma State football and our school. And those are fun nights for me, much less seeing a lot of coaches that I've known for years now, to see them. And it's a fun experience, and I enjoy getting out to be around the high school games.
So before Texas Tech played at KU, Texas Tech scores 40-some-odd offensive touchdowns in 6 games. They only get 2 the other day. Is that a good teaching tool for you, a good something to help with focus this week?
Sure.
To remind them, A, that Oklahoma State struggled at KU last year, and B, a really good Texas Tech offense struggled against these guys last week.
Well, ultimately, the last 3 games that we've played Kansas, we haven't fared very well on offense. And so each week, as I said, we have to focus and prepare because we're not good enough to just show up. And we have areas that we need to improve in. And last week, as an example, KU's behind by 3 driving with 3 minutes and 40-something seconds left, or however many it was. They throw an interception to run it in to make it 10 points. So it was a pretty close game against a Tech team that's rolled up some big numbers this year, as you said. So that helps to stress the importance of preparation that we started with last week, and we continue on, but it doesn't always mean that they listen.
So all the craziness just on this weekend alone in college football, does it make you all more appreciative of being 6-0, winning 8 in a row, winning these 3 close ones in a row the way you have?
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say that I'm very appreciative of where we are, and that there's close games across the country, and to win some late, it's what it takes in order to have a good season, because you could be the same football team and be 4-2. I mean, just right there at the end. So we all understand that, and we appreciate it. And it's just, I mean, I've said it for, this is the 4th or 5th year, and it's going to be this way from now on, that it's hard to compare what 2 teams did and say, okay, well, these teams played this way, and so this next game's going to be like that because you played that team and beat them different. It's not that way anymore. It's about matchups, and it's about getting the players prepared. It's about their focus, and in my opinion, that's more important than the rest of it, unless you're just so talented that it doesn't matter.
With it being halfway in the season pretty much, how would you evaluate the true freshman class, the remaining 4 players that played this season so far? How would you define their performance so far?
Darian is playing better than what I thought a true freshman would play in the defensive line. McCleskey is is giving us some plays. He's got speed. He's in there at punt return. He's getting a little better. You know, he's dropped a couple, but he's learning. We knew going in he probably would. Magruder has been good for us in special teams and is learning to play defense. He's still a ways behind, but he's getting better. And who's the other guy? Oh, Carr, yeah. Jeff hadn't got to play as much, but our goal with him was to get some reps, to teach him just like we have the other backs that are young that we think are going to be good players, and then he's helped us in special teams. He hadn't been as productive. He hadn't had as many plays. But we're glad that we've played all of them, and we're glad that we were able to redshirt so many players.
And of course, Signers also helped that special teams as well.
Sure. He's a second-year guy, though. Yeah, he's a freshman, but we redshirted him last year. But he certainly had a good game at West Virginia.
Mike, speaking of Carr and McCleskey, in the return game, because normally your teams have had some big plays that have helped out in the return game. You think in the second half of the season those kids could have a little more success? And again, on McCleskey's part, I consider that kind of successful because he catches every ball, which really helps you field position-wise.
He's fair caught 2 balls he shouldn't have, and then there's been 3 that he should have fair catched or fair caught, whatever the English is on that he should have called for a fair catch. Other than that, we haven't had many opportunities on punt. I haven't been real pleased with our blocking on kickoff return. Ironically, the best we've blocked this year is against Kansas State, who's usually one of the top teams in the country. We competed better and fared better on kickoff return against them than we have anybody else. We've stressed that some this week. And if we can fit people up better, then Carr will look better returning kickoffs.
There's been a lot of talk about how dominant your defense has been, but in 5 of these 6 games, your offense has been the first team to score. Getting that fast start, has that been as critical to your success as maybe a lot of the other factors?
I think fast start's very important. We stress that. Our defense has played very good up to this point. I think the second half of the season will really be an indicator of how good we are, because we're going to play some really good teams over the next half of the season. It's just kind of the way that it's fallen when you break it up into offense and defense. But getting off to a fast start is important. When you're on the road, you can quiet the crowd, and when you're at home, you can get everybody going.
How has Markel Martin been as a GA? You know, I know he's just new this year. How's he been with players, just observing his coaching style? I mean, what's he done for you so far?
He's learning. He's got a long ways to go as a coach, but it's a start for him. And I think he's understanding our lifestyle. And they get to a point, those guys that are ex-players that get in the role of being a coach, they get to a point where they have to make a decision. Is this the commitment that I or they want to make for an extended period of time? And he's learning. But he communicates well with our players. He's very intelligent. There's just such a difference in playing the game and coaching the game. And I think he's learning that at this time.
Does he seem like the kind of guy who wants to move up the ranks and, you know, maybe be a full-time assistant some days and still figuring it out?
I haven't been around him enough as a coach to know that. You would have to ask him. Again, I go back to the time commitment and the willingness to say this is all I'm going to do, and I have to fill in on the rest of the stuff when I have time. That's where they really have to make that decision, and it usually takes a year or 2 for those guys to figure out if that's the direction that they want to pursue.
So how do you, it seems to me that Jordan Stearns would be one of the guys you've coached here who was a really good player and doesn't get talked about a whole lot.
I'd agree with that.
How do you view him, especially now with Ryan Simmons out? Is his presence on the defensive side of the ball just magnified that much more?
His leadership presence, and he is a good tackler, and he makes a lot of plays. He's a coach's dream from a standpoint. I said this to you guys, I think, last week. There was 95 defensive plays, 100 give or so total, and then he's in special teams, and at the end of the game, he still wanted to be on special teams. he just has a very high energy level, and he's ultra competitive. Collisions, pain, those things are irrelevant in his playing saga, just the way he handles himself. And you don't find very many young men that are like that, but he certainly, up to this point, falls in that category.
I asked him a couple weeks ago, because he had a bunch of tackles and, big collisions, and I asked him, how do you recover? How quickly do you recover, and how, by midweek, how you feel? And he said, I have a difficult Sunday, and then by Monday, I'm ready to go. And he said, I live for this stuff. So
I would agree with that. I think that sometimes players at our level will say one thing, lead you to a direction, and not really feel that way. I would believe that with him. Just late in the games, he wants in there, and his energy's at a high level. And it is a violent, physical game that we play, and their bodies are stressed out. And there's a lot of truth to, I don't feel good for 2 or 3 days. I'm trying to recover the middle of the week to get ready to play in another game. And that comes back to the break that you asked about that we took this week. The reason we did is because they've stressed their bodies big time over the last month, especially. And some guys can recover quicker than others. Some players can't overcome a little bit of pain and practice well on Tuesday. So that means they get 1 practice a week, which is Wednesday. And that's the give and take of what we do. But Stearns always practices good, and he always plays with a high level of energy.
who are another 2 or 3 guys you've coached here who would be in that class? Guys who were really super good and just didn't get nearly attention.
Sean Lewis was a good player, and people talked about him, but on a national level, he didn't get a lot of recognition. In his own world, fighting through injuries and overlooking pain and playing, Kai Stavey was that way. He was really valuable to our offense, and he couldn't practice on Tuesdays because everything he had was in pain, but he played well and he could overcome. He's very mentally tough. Nick Martinez. Sure.
Most people wouldn't even recognize him, but you'd probably
Sure.
be happy to see him.
And there's guys, we joke with them, but some guys are willing to do anything to play college football. A guy like Nick, I used to tell him that he should probably donate his body to biology after he's finished playing, so they can just kind of do studies on what happens to you. There's certain players that are just the way they are. They don't care. They're going to play. They love to play the game, and they can just ignore pain. And he was one of those players. You run across guys like that. Broderick Brown was that way. Broderick Brown was undersized. He would make play after play, and he had ankles and knees and shoulders and you name it, and he had an issue, but he would play when he had to play. And for us as coaches, we enjoy being around young men that are willing to put the time and effort into it and do the right thing all the time.
Trey Flowers out here today, Mike, was talking about how he considers Stearns a role model. So his Stearns' role value extends beyond just what he does on Saturdays.
And that's a good one to watch. He's a good one to watch. And that's when I started the sentence by saying that he does as much for us as a leader as anything. That's kind of what I was referring to.
Talk a little bit about JW. We've talked about him before, but he obviously played a key role in the last game with the game-winning touchdown, and he's just been a good leader as well, hasn't he?
JW is a big part of our offense and a big part of our football team. We need to expand his role as much as possible. It's not as easy as what people think, but he has success when he's in there, and he kind of falls in the Stearns category. He's going to play and just keep going, and those are the kind of guys that make up a quality football team.
Any other questions?
Good. All right. Thank you.